ダニエルとユカ。
Hey everyone, I'm Daniel.
Hi everyone, I'm Yuka.
Today we are going to do a reaction to Jaiden Animation, What My Trip to Japan Was Like. This seems to be a fairly popular video for a lot of Japanese YouTubers to react to. This could be one of the last videos that we film and upload before we get to Japan. Look forward to our Japanese content in Japan. It's been quite a while since we last in
last
Japan.
time we went back to Japan was 2019.
October, 2 years since we were last in Japan. Let's get started.
Holiday!
Bye-bye.
In October, I went on the first vacation I've been on with my family in years. My dad works super hard all the time, so normally it would be either my brother, mom, and me, or just me and my mom, and even those vacations became pretty sparse. It's been over 10 years since we've all had a family vacation, and all of a sudden we have a week to be squished together in a foreign country. So how'd this one go? Day 1. We arrived at the Tokyo airport after a nice and easy 11-hour flight and got off the plane like, wow, I can't believe we finally made it. We've been planning and looking forward to this trip for almost a year, and it's finally happening. How do we get out of here?
When we go back to Japan, it's actually going to take us about 26 hours. So we're going to be flying Port Moresby in Papua New Guinea to Hong Kong, and then we have a 15-hour layover in Hong Kong airport.
How you can survive?
Lounges.
Or benches.
Lounges.
Or benches.
No, 100% lounges. It's basically the only thing that I've heard is open at Hong Kong International Airport, so yeah.
But they might close it though, after midnight. Benches.
We walked around the airport for 2 hours trying to figure out what we had to do, which train we had to get. We lost Dad for like half an hour in the sea of Asians. I'd already expected the worst and thought he was dead, but no worries.
Arrival is not that busy, but then once you get through into the arrival hall, then there's normally heaps and heaps of people all milling around, because normally before coronavirus, then Narita is one of the busiest airports in the world. I think now it'll be a very, very different experience. It'll just be a ghost town.
Turns out he wasn't taken out by the Japanese mafia. My mom had to get train tickets and he had to take care of the luggage, so we split up and planned to meet at a ticket counter. But little did we know there were 2 of them on opposite ends of the floor, and as the stereotype goes, they looked exactly the same. So my parents were just grumbling and waiting for each other to show up at the opposite ticket stand with no method of communication because we didn't have Wi-Fi yet. After figuring that out and getting to the Tokyo station, we had to use the subway to get to our hotel. None of us grew up in the city, and using the subway.
Now, I definitely remember being in this situation of being stuck in Narita Airport and feeling kind of isolated because I couldn't communicate with anybody. The very first time I went to Japan was 2006. At that time, that was kind of before iPhones and everything, so I actually rented like a really cool Japanese smartphone, which I thought was really cool at the time, and I got a SIM card and the phone and basic internet access. That made it a lot more easier, but this was also before the time of Google Maps and also those guidebooks.
Yeah, like a Lonely Planet, right?
Yeah, the Lonely Planet Guide to Tokyo was my best friend in 2006.
Way was new to us, so we had to look at the train station map to see what to do.
Yeah, it's
and
pretty colorful.
is this
crazy.
the Windows 98 pipe screensaver? What is this?
It is.
Props to people who use the Metro
Very
daily
similar to that.
or even just know how to figure that stuff out, because that's like a whole Bill Gates secret code, and the
It's like the
consequence of making a
Matrix.
mistake is paying to be plopped in an area you never wanted to be at in the first place. We didn't even know how to start reading the map, so my dad resorted to the only logical option. Do you speak English? Do you speak English? Konnichiwa.
Not many people speak
Please, help us.
英語話せるわけねえじゃねえか、外人のバカ。迷子になれ。
A good 90% of the time we were lost and not knowing where to go. So my dad would keep walking up to random Japanese people and trying to communicate with them in English, even though we were in a country that doesn't speak English. And when they obviously wouldn't understand, he would just try to say it all again, but slower. Like that was gonna make a difference. But we found.
Yeah, I'm a little bit guilty of doing that. If I'm trying to ask your parents something, I'll talk a little bit slower. But your mum also speaks Japanese or
Okay,
English a
not
little bit.
beer. Beer. Most of the time when you speak slowly, people can understand. What is your tactic? You must have a tactic to communicate with my parents.
A lot of gesturing and like my vocabulary is not amazing, but I know a lot of words.
Japanese
Like
words.
I think I'm better at listening and kind of working out what the conversation is sort of about based on context, like the words that I can understand, and then I kind of put it together matrix style in my head, and then okay, the conversation's about this. すみません。助けてください。ハヤットホテルどこですか?
Perfect.
Yes.
You can survive.
But I think I was better planned. Like I sort of tried to teach myself a little bit of Japanese before I went to Japan for the first time. So being able to read hiragana or katakana at the most basic level is probably going to be extremely helpful if you go to Japan for the first
I
time.
think nowadays a lot of people can speak in English as well.
But they might be able to speak in English, but they don't want to speak in English because
that's true.
hazakashi, it's embarrassing, or they're a bit nervous.
But when I went to France, the French people didn't want you to speak in English as well. Oh, French only. Even they understand, right?
But if you make an effort to speak French in France, then they'll be a lot more friendly, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
But if you just come in and like, oh, excuse me, can you tell me how I get to the Louvre? And you're in France and you should know how to speak French.
Oh,
Otherwise, don't come to France.
No, I think Japanese people are just a bit shy.
I've had some good experiences about asking someone for directions, and then the person actually walked me all the way to
Some people
my
are very,
destination
very
that I asked
kind.
for.
Yeah.
And it was like a 10-minute walk, and
Oh, that's so
that's really nice.
Found a guy named Paul who helped us out. Thank you, Paul. Konnichiwa. Japan is super different from the States. I didn't really know what to expect, but my mom and I were super hyped after experiencing and learning about the culture. Dad and Jax, not so much, but they liked the food. So here's what happened. First morning, woke up early to do a Tokyo bus tour. This time, after our best friend Paul taught us the ropes, we were experts at navigating the subway. We got on the wrong train. We stopped at a cafe for breakfast, and it was at that point where I realized I wasn't going to be able to use the image translation app I downloaded to try and make communication easier while we were there. It would have been super awesome to just hover the camera over the Japanese symbols and have the phone immediately be like, hey, this is what this says, but it wasn't working the way I thought it would. I don't speak Japanese, but I'm pretty sure they weren't selling a surprised egg topped with the
Surprised egg topping was the first time in fabric.
Yeah, so you might be able to find a very interesting English word in Japan, right?
Direct translation.
Yeah, Daniel is always taking the photo of those and then sharing to your friends, right?
Like there's a lot of just very bad spelling mistakes, or it's just a very direct translation, which is just come straight out of Google, and like the actual English sentence does not make any sense at all.
the first time in fabric. This wife. I don't think that's a thing. Who married an egg and why is she so surprised? The tour was fun. We went to a forest with some shrines, saw some sumo wrestlers, went up the Tokyo Tower. Pretty cool Asian stuff. Second day, we walked on Japan's big famous crosswalk that looks like the B-movie's traffic system. Pressed F for the dog that waited 9 years for his dead owner to return from the train station. I love you, Hachiko. Went to a hedgehog cafe. Got on the wrong train.
If we've been to a lot of cat cafes and owl cafes.
Mega Donuki! Spent way too much money at the Pokemon Center. Won nothing at a big arcade. And then collapsed into bed. I should probably slow things down a bit so you can really take in. Day whatever! Wrong train! Rice triangles! Tiny banana snack! My brother said it tasted weird. Walking tour! Oh god, my legs hurt! More noodles! Went to sleep. We had another bus tour around Kyoto, and one of the stops was this 1,000 golden statues temple that was really cool, and we learned about a bunch of gods, one of which I, a Pokemon master, already recognized since it was the inspiration behind Thunderous.
Okay. Do you know what this music is?
Another one of the stops.
Do you know what that music is?
No.
That's the American English intro music for the Pokemon TV series. Like the original.
I didn't know
I
that.
want to be the very best. like no one ever was. Dun, 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 dun. It's like such an 80s kind of rock ballad. Man, it was pretty cool.
The bus tour was this temple called Kiyomizu-dera. And there's a whole backstory to this place where some people would do this thing called taking the plunge, which was seen as a bold and desperate, extreme wish-making act. So it's simple. What you do is jump off the 43-foot temple balcony and not die. That's literally it. I'm not joking. In the Edo period, people believe that if they put their lives in the hands of Kannon, the god of mercy, you'd be granted a wish, given you don't die, because he doesn't give wishes to corpses. During that time, 200 people jumped, and 85% of them survived, which I'd say is actually a pretty good ratio. One woman apparently even jumped twice. Hey, my wish didn't come true.
My wish didn't come true.
I guess I jump again. Well, they don't let you do that anymore, which I think is fair, I guess. Anyway, that wasn't even where I was going with that place. There's this little shrine area at the foot of the temple with 3 waterfalls, each representing either longer life, wisdom, or love. And if you drink from one of them, it's believed that you'd be granted that particular category in life, but you only get 1 drink. Thirsty hoe. So I go up there with my long cup on a stick you get, and was watching what everyone else was doing. They would get the water in the cup, wash one hand at a time, then pour some water into one hand to drink from, and let the rest drip into the pool below. Anyway, cutting to the chase, basically, you're in the presence of some pretty intense wisdom right now. Also, there wasn't any place to dry your hands afterwards, so I got wisdom water all over my pants. After that, we saw the 1,000 red gates. You're allowed to walk under them, but apparently it takes like 3 hours to get through them all, and we didn't have that time, so we walked under like 10 and called it a day. After waking up with some...
We went to fishing in Italy, didn't we?
Not with me, Daniel. With food.
French toast that was lightly dusted with a
French
pound of
toast.
sugar. My mom and I went to the Studio Ghibli Museum.
I've never been to Ghibli Museum yet.
Ah, crazy. I've
Is
been
it
there like
nice?
twice.
Have you been there, right?
Yeah, I've been, I think 2 or 3 times, but it's like really hard to get in. Like, they just make it really complicated. So you can't just catch the train to Nitaka no Mori and then just say, I'd like to buy 2 tickets or a
Yeah,
ticket,
I
please.
think you
like,
have
you
to
have to book
book.
it like a month before or a few weeks before, and you can generally only buy the tickets from
Right, convenience store, right? Daniel really wanted to visit to USJ.
Super Nintendo World, of course. Hello, Universal Studios in Osaka. So that is 100% going to be on our travel list for Japan. So expect future content.
I can't express how incredible that place was. I would recommend it to anyone who has an appreciation for Ghibli, or animation, or art, or anything. I'd show you how mesmerizing it is in there, but there's no filming or photos allowed inside, so no spoilers here. I'm a child of the law. But I did snag this picture of the kids' play area because I thought it was adorable. And sometimes you just gotta break the rules when it's important, okay? We went to a conveyor belt sushi place, and Mom had never been to one before, so she got overwhelmed and just immediately grabbed like 5 random things. I've been to one once before, but my skills aren't anywhere near coordinated. So when I tried to put the wasabi bowl back, I ended up clogging a bunch of plates and ruining a section of the sushi harmony and just being really obnoxious. And I felt really bad. The next day, we almost got on the wrong train. The wisdom juice is kicking in. We went to this famous Sega arcade with 8 floors.
This place, I think, is shut down now.
Oh,
They closed down this year.
In Tokyo?
Yeah, in Tokyo. The big 8th floor, I'm pretty sure it's in Akihabara. So that was a very iconic building because it's been there for decades.
That was immensely intimidating. You know how you go to an arcade and there's always some Asian kid who's an absolute god at a game, and there's a little crowd watching because it's so mesmerizing and we're all pathetic? This is their hive. This is the enlightenment mountain they climb for 80 years and consume nothing but tears of tigers. Car racing, combat games, even the children were getting spit out the womb playing like monks. Look at this guy. I don't know what game this is or the objective here, but the aura around him is screaming, "Leave here and never come back, unworthy rat." We were also introduced to this dance game I've never seen before called Dance Rush Stardom. It's like DDR but with less arrows and 100% more late 90s Melbourne shuffling. My brother and I tried to play it and it felt like the whole country was like, oh god, why are they here? They look Asian but they're white as crackers. But we got a good kick out of it, so you know what, go konnichiwa yourself. Then we left.
My favorite arcade game is, do you know?
UFO Catcher? Taiko no Tatsujin? So can you guess my favorite?
Pew Pew.
Street Fighter.
Oh, get out of here. I've offered to play Street Fighter with you multiple times and you never want to play
Street
Street
Fighter.
Okay, we're going to have a Street Fighter death match tonight. after
Sure,
this
why
video.
not?
Okay.
Then got on the wrong train. But the last night we went to this robot show, and let me tell you, this place was insane. So the main attractions of the place are these giant flashy robots and stuff. But I gotta talk about these drinks and light bulbs they were selling. They were crazy with all their blinking colors and such. It was like a little rave in a cup. Like, dude, who comes up with this stuff? Benjamin Franklin wishes he did, I'll tell you that. You got to choose from like 4 drink choices, but most of them were alcohol, so I got this peach juice instead. I'm legally allowed to drink now, but I'm not the biggest fan, and who knows how outrageous the drink would have looked if I was a bit tipsy. Anyway, definitely one of the most insane things I saw there for sure. Top of the list of the entire show. Nothing.
When we got married in Tokyo, that was one of the group activities that I kind of put together on like a fun activities itinerary for all of our guests who had travelled from around the world to come to Japan for the first time.
I don't know, that was very culture shocking even for me too. Even I'm Japanese. Because that was just totally crazy. It's just really noisy and some guests didn't want to stay there because it feels very...
It was just a little bit uncomfortable because it was a lot of flashing lights and lasers and neon, and it was like a Cirque du Soleil kind of acrobatics.
Yeah, but not that
like
elegant though. It's
really,
a little bit
aggressive.
Yeah, it's
wasn't
really
it? Like it had a
aggressive.
lot of cyberpunk, like
Cirque du Soleil is
rock.
more like a nicely elegant and it had a lot of
Very
beautiful
artistic.
But local restaurant is just a
noise and
noise and yeah, it was very interesting. I feel that's the Tokyo image from outside of Japan, but that's not really Japan for Japanese. So most of the customer was all non-Japanese people, and it seems very popular. Yeah. So, but it was a great experience, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was definitely fun to try it at least once. Just go in with an open mind and experience it and go, maybe it's not for me. I think it was a little bit overhyped because I'd read like Anthony Bourdain had recommended it as one of the must things that you have to do in Tokyo, and then I was like, really? I can think of a lot more things that I'd rather do in Japan.
Restaurant, right?
So it was just very contemporary.
Yeah, very contemporary. We did Mario Kart, which was really nice and
So
cool.
that was the live action Mario Kart racing, but not officially Mario Kart.
And we also went to Sumo Grand Final. Then
We went on a Yakitabune.
Yakatabune.
Yakitabune is like a big floating restaurant, effectively.
On the
but
Sumida.
it's kind of like a private boat that you can hire for like a
Sumidagawa cruise.
on the Sumida River.
Oh, then Daniel went to Tokyo Game Show.
Yeah, Tokyo
And
Game
then
Show.
also
That was-
Ultra Japan.
Yep, Ultra Japan.
Ultra Japan.
We went to Fujikyu
It
Highlands.
was craziest September in my life actually.
That was pretty fun.
Japan was so much fun, and it's become one of my favorite memories with my family. But the thing is, when I started this script, I wanted to briefly mention what we did so I could talk about how much trouble I had getting back home, because that was a whole situation of classic Jaiden I thought you would enjoy. But here I am on page 4 of the script, and I haven't been able to talk about anything. I don't like breaking stories into different parts, but we're not animating a 20-minute video. I'd rather put my hands in the life of canon. Twice. So yeah, see you in a few weeks with that.
This was pretty interesting video. Thanks, Jaiden.
Yeah, thanks,
Yeah.
Jaiden Animations. I think I can see why a lot of Japanese YouTubers would be reacting to this, because they could empathize. Japanese YouTubers going to America for the first time, or Australia for the first time. Like, how did you feel
Oh my
when you went to
God.
Australia for the first
When
time?
I went to Australia, that was pretty shocking. First time was when I was 14 years old for some exchange student trip. And then after that, I went back to Australia like that was 6 years ago. But when I get there at the airport, and then I wanted to ask to send my suitcase to my hotel, because that things are very easy to do in Japan.
That's so
But
common.
there's no service like that in Australia. And then I was like, oh, I don't want to carry this 2 suitcases with me by train or bus. And then, but there's no service. And I was like, this is insane. And then when I got to Sydney, like central Sydney, I thought it's more bigger.
What, you thought Sydney was bigger?
Yeah, I thought
compared to
Sydney
Tokyo.
is a bigger, but I gradually understand why people like Australia. Like first experience is a bit, it's just a bit overwhelming, like a situation. If my image and reality didn't match.
Yeah.
So
Speaking of that, I think that's quite common with a lot of Japanese women who travel to France for the first time. Because there's a lot of
fancy
romantic
image.
imagination about how beautiful and exotic France is, with all the beautiful architecture and the baguettes and the coffee and there's music in the air, love in the air, it's the city of romance.
Yeah.
And then they get to Paris and
A lot of pickpockets. And people
lots of
are not a
pickpockets
bit,
and people
you
are a little
know.
bit rude and they're like, yeah, no, get out of here.
But you didn't feel that way when you went to Japan for the first time, because you must have a lot of expectation for the trip, right? You must have some a bit disappointing experience, you know? Was it same as your image?
I think it was pretty similar
Okay.
to my imagination, and like before I went, I watched a lot of documentaries and I read a lot of Lonely Planet books and a lot of stuff on the internet about first time trips and what to expect when going to Tokyo for the first time.
So there's no disappointment.
Like I love Japan, right? And I've watched a lot of anime, so I sort of had this kind of
Like a dream came to
dream
you.
expectation that there's a lot of old tradition,
Yeah.
but a lot of modern skyscrapers. So
And
yeah,
this time Daniel's gonna live in Japan for a few months. So Daniel might have some disappointment. The living experience must be a bit different from traveling
just
as a
going on
tourist.
holiday.
Yeah, and because there is always pro and con. It's not always good things around, right? So
Hopefully you have enjoyed our reaction to Jaiden Animations, what my trip to Japan was like. If you did, then please consider smashing that like button. It's super helpful and it's pretty easy to do. Just clickety click. If you haven't already subscribed, then please consider subscribing. Help us get to 1,000 subs by the time we get to Japan.
then you won't miss out all Japanese content.
As long as you click that notification bell.
See you next time.
See you next time. Bye bye.